The Austin heat slammed down like a hammer when Luke screeched into my garage on a blistering Thursday afternoon in early June. At 45, I'd been running Diane's Auto on the east side for a decade, a rough-edged shop with peeling paint and a steady flow of regulars who trusted my hands over anyone's. My divorce from Rick 5 summers ago had left me with this place, a stack of debts, and a grit that kept me wrenching through long days and sleepless nights balancing books. Luke, my sister's 19-year-old son, pulled up in his dented Chevy, dust swirling, his backpack slung over his shoulder, desperation carved deep into his sweat-streaked, unshaven face. Aunt Diane, my girlfriend dumped me cold, and Mom's nagging is unbearable. Can I stay here and work with you? He asked, voice tight. His blue eyes, shadowed with raw hurt, hit me hard, echoes of my own heartbreak years back, and I couldn't turn him away, not when he looked so broken. All right, you can crash in the spare room upstairs, but you'll earn it fixing cars or you're gone fast, I said, wiping grease off my palms with a stained rag from my overalls pocket. He nodded quick, dropping his bag by the workbench with a thud, and said, "Thanks, I need this. Something to keep my mind off everything, you know? I'm Diane, by the way, in case you forgot your aunt's name in all your messy teenage breakup drama," I said, arms crossed firm. He flashed a weak grin, the cocky kid I remembered flickering through, and replied, "I know who you are, Aunt Diane. Don't worry, I'm not that far gone yet, not completely." The first week, Luke tailed me like a shadow, quiet, handing me tools, watching me wrestle a rattling engine on a '98 Ford pickup with sharp, hungry focus. He was lanky but sturdy, arms tanned from summers mowing lawns in Waco, and he caught on fast, bleeding brakes, swapping belts, checking oil without spilling it all over the concrete floor. I'd catch him drifting, eyes glazed, probably replaying that ex's betrayal in his head, and I'd snap, "Luke, wake up, get me the 3/4 wrench, now, before I lose my patience." He'd jolt, grab it, and mutter, "Sorry, zoned out. Won't happen again, I swear. Just got lost for a second." Nights, we'd collapse in the backroom office, fans buzzing loud, splitting a pepperoni pizza from the joint down the street, grease staining the box on the cluttered desk. He'd vent, how she'd left him for some college jerk, how he'd quit school to find himself, and I'd nod, sipping soda, saying, "She's not worth your energy. Plenty of girls out there who'd see what you've got going, trust me." He'd smirk, faint, and reply, "Maybe, but you're tougher than her, cooler too. Don't take nonsense from anybody, ever, and I like that." Tension crept in slow, his glances when I leaned over an engine, the way he'd linger too close passing a torque wrench, shoulders brushing mine soft. I'd shake it off, tell myself it was nothing, just a kid settling in, but my skin prickled when his eyes held too long, a heat waking something I'd buried since Rick walked out. Tuesday, 2 weeks in, it broke, late, past 10. The garage silent save for a flickering bulb casting jagged shadows across the oil-stained concrete floor. We'd been fighting a seized alternator on a Dodge minivan, sweat soaking my overalls, my hair a damp mess under the bandana, keeping it from my eyes and face. "Lock the bay doors. We're done for tonight," I told him, rolling my shoulders to ease the ache as he nodded and shuffled toward the front with heavy, dragging steps. The back room's my retreat, couch, mini fridge, a sink where I scrub off the day before climbing upstairs to the apartment over the shop. I slipped in, figuring he'd dawdle, and unzipped my overalls, peeling them down to my tank top and shorts, the grimy fabric stiff against my skin after hours of wrenching and cursing. Didn't hear his boots, didn't hear a whisper, until I turned, half-stripped, and there he was, framed in the doorway, a stack of invoices in his hand, eyes popping wide like he'd seen a ghost. "Diane, Aunt Diane, I was just bringing these back. Didn't know you were changing," he choked out, gaze dropping to my bare shoulders, my hips, the tank clinging damp to my chest, before jerking up fast. I snatched the overalls, yanking them up, heat exploding across my face as I snapped, "Luke, ever think to knock, or at least make some noise so I know you're creeping up on me like that?" He stammered, cheeks flaming red, "Sorry, I didn't mean, I'll just," and bolted, papers fluttering to the floor like scattered leaves as he fled back to the workbench. I stood there, pulse hammering loud, zipping up quick, muttering it was an accident. Stupid, clumsy kid stuff. Nothing to dwell on or blow out of proportion. But when I walked out, toweling my hands dry, he wouldn't look at me. Hunched over a socket set, neck flushed pink, fingers twitching like he'd been caught with his hand in a fire. Wednesday morning, the air was a wall. He barely spoke over coffee, eyes glued to his mug as I flipped pancakes on the hot plate in the apartment's tiny kitchen. "Pass the syrup. Don't sit there like a statue all morning," I said, keeping it normal. But later, I caught him staring. When I bent to grab a rag, his gaze raked my legs, my arms, steady and hot. Not a kid's look anymore. Not even close. I'd been a ghost since Rick, years of fading into a shell nobody bothered to notice. And now Luke's stare lit me up, a jolt I couldn't shake. Didn't want stirring, but it did anyway. "Chevy's in. Tune up. You're on spark plugs. Don't mess it up or we'll be here all night," I said, tossing him a box. Needing work to bury last night's stumble fast. He caught it, nodding. "Got it. I'll do it right. Learned from you. Best mechanic I've ever seen." His grin tight, eyes flicking to me then away like he was hiding something big. We worked close, him under the hood, me checking fluids, his elbow brushing mine passing tools. Deliberate now, a spark that lingered longer each time he didn't pull back quick. That night, we cracked beers, Shiner Bock, cold from the fridge, sitting on the backroom couch, the day's grime settling around us like a heavy, gritty fog we couldn't escape. She didn't get me. Thought I was a loser for liking engines, not some fancy degree path, he said, voice rough, sipping slow as he stared at the bottle label in his hand. I leaned back, beer sweating in my grip, and replied, "Her loss. You're good with your hands. Better than most guys twice your age I've met around here, no question." His eyes snapped to mine, holding steady, and he said, "You're not like her. Real, strong, don't play games, don't need to impress anybody ever. Life's too short for nonsense." Learned that when Rick walked out, left me to pick up the pieces alone. I said, voice flat but firm. He shifted, knee pressing mine, hand on the couch, fingers brushing my thigh, just a graze, but it burned, and he murmured, "You're not old. Still got it. Way more than she ever dreamed of having, Diane. Watch it, Luke. Words like that stir trouble, and you're not ready for the mess it could make us," I warned, pulse racing, his heat seeping through me like oil on a scorching engine block now. Thursday, I dragged us out, loaded my old Tacoma, drove to Zilker Park, grabbed burgers from a food truck, sat on the grass watching kayaks cut through Barton Springs under a blazing sun. He stretched out beside me, shirt riding up, showing tan skin and lean muscle, and I looked too long, caught his smirk when he saw me staring back at him like a fool. "What? Enjoying the show, and Diane, or just checking if I'm still in one piece?" He teased, tossing a fry my way, and I shot back. "Keep dreaming. I've seen better rust buckets with more charm than you've got going on here." Back at the garage, a transmission job, grueling messy, had us tight, him under the car, me passing tools, his hand brushing mine on a jack, lingering warm, a pulse I felt deep in my bones and couldn't ignore anymore. "You're good. Could run a shop someday if you don't waste it on moping," I said, wiping sweat as he slid out, grease on his cheek, eyes locked on mine too hard and steady. "Thanks. Means something coming from you. Best teacher I've ever had, hands down, no contest," he said, voice low, tension coiling tighter between us like a spring about to snap loose. That night, beers again, 3 each, the backroom dim, fans whining loud, and he sat close, shoulder jammed against mine, his heat sinking in, a pressure I couldn't dodge or push away any longer now. She never cared, just wanted some polished guy. "Not me. Not this life," he said, cracking another, voice thick with something raw and unsteady as he spoke. I sipped, legs brushing his, and replied, "Her mistake. You're worth more than that, more than she'll ever see. Trust me on it, Luke." He turned, eyes dark, and said, "You get me. Always have. More than anyone, and it's different with you. Diane, real different. Don't. Lines like that cross places we can't come back from, and you know it deep down," I said, voice sharp, but it shook, his hand sliding to my knee, firm, electric, sending a shiver up my spine instantly. Been thinking about you, Tuesday, how you looked. Can't stop, won't stop, it's stuck in me, he murmured, leaning in, breath hot on my neck, close enough to taste if I let it happen right then. Friday, a storm crashed in, thunder shaking the garage, rain hammering the roof, power flickering as we finished a brake job on a Honda Civic past midnight. Lanterns, backroom shelf. Grab them quick before we're stuck blind, I said, and he brushed past, arm grazing my waist, deliberate, a spark flaring hotter with every second we didn't address it now. We set up, lanterns glowing, six-pack split, couch sagging under us, the air thick with damp and a pull I couldn't name, but felt deep in my gut like a live wire sparking. She didn't want me, just some idea of a guy I'd never be, ever, he said, voice rough, cracking open his fourth beer with a quick twist of his wrist. I sipped mine, knee against his, and replied, her loss, you're real. Good. Don't need to prove anything to someone who can't see it clearly, Luke. He leaned closer, eyes burning in the lantern light, and said, you see it, see me, and it's better with you. More than I ever had with her, hands down. Luke, stop. This is a cliff, and we're too close to falling over it into something dangerous, I said, but my hand stayed near his, trembling slightly. His fingers slid up my thigh, slow, bold, and he whispered, saw you, Tuesday, keeps playing in my head, driving me crazy, Diane, every single night since then. My breath hitched, skin buzzing where he touched, and I said, this is wrong, dangerous, you know we can't, so why keep pushing when it could ruin us both completely? Don't care, feels right, better than right, and I'm not backing off unless you tell me to stop, he said, voice low and fierce. His lips hovered, breath brushing mine, and when he kissed me, soft, then hard, I didn't stop him, kissing back, hand gripping his shirt, his fingers digging into my leg, heat exploding between us like a spark hitting dry fuel. We broke apart, gasping, and I rasped, no one finds out. Ever. Swear it, Luke, or this ends before it even gets going anywhere serious. I swear, he panted, thumb on my jaw, sealing it as thunder rolled, the storm swallowing the world outside the garage's trembling walls. Saturday, he was wired, coffee brewing early, handing me a mug as I shuffled into the kitchen in my robe, hair tangled from a restless, sleepless night. We okay? Last night, I don't want it weird, just need to know where we're at with this now, he asked, scratching his neck, eyes darting like he'd shatter if I said no to him. We're fine, set rules, keep it quiet, don't let it spill where it shouldn't, and we'll figure it out slow, I said, sipping, watching him relax, tension easing from his shoulders as he exhaled hard. Days tightened, work, him learning fast, me catching his hands brushing mine, his eyes tracking me when I moved, a secret pulsing hot and heavy between us every shift. One afternoon, a customer flipped, some suit yelling about a delay on his BMW, and Luke stepped in, voice steady. Back off. She's doing her best. Better than you deserve. So cool it before I make you. I smirked later, tossing him a soda, and said, nice save, didn't need it, but you've got guts standing up to a jerk like that, kid. Learned from you. Tough as nails. Don't take garbage from anyone ever, he said, grinning, leaning close, his hand grazing my arm, a spark I didn't douse despite knowing better. That night, we grilled out back, burgers sizzling, smoke thick, and he pressed against me flipping patties, hip warm, his laugh low, daring me to push back or pull him closer, testing me again. Weeks stretched, August heat choking the garage, Luke picking up oil changes at a chain shop, coming home sweaty, grease under his nails, stories spilling out fast. Guy today wanted a refund cause he didn't like the noise, fixed it anyway, shut him up, he said one night, kicking off boots, sprawling on the couch next to me with a tired grin. You'd fit there, gritty, real, like this place if you ever want to see it for yourself, he added, arm over the couch, fingers brushing my shoulder, a habit now, electric every single time it happened. One evening, Rick called, checking in, voice flat, asking about the shop like he still had a stake in it after all these years gone. I barely listened, eyes on Luke tinkering with a carburetor, shirt off, sweat gleaming, and hung up quick. Gotta go. Busy. Not caring if Rick heard the lie in my clipped tone. Luke looked up, smirking. Old man still sniffing around? Tell him you've got better company now, way better. And I laughed. He'd choke if he knew who's keeping me on my toes these days, kid. Tension spiked. A Friday late, a rush job on a Jeep, him under at me over, his hand catching mine on a wrench, holding tight, eyes locked, air crackling like a storm about to break loose. You drive me nuts, watching you all day, can't think straight, can't breathe right, he said, sliding out, voice low, stepping close, chest brushing mine, heat radiating like a live engine ready to blow up. Luke, back off, this is too much, too fast, and we're in deep already without you pushing it harder, I said, stepping back, heart slamming, hands shaking as I gripped the workbench to steady myself. Don't want to back off, want you, Diane, more every day, and it's killing me to pretend otherwise anymore, he said, closing the gap fast. His hands found my waist, pulling me in, lips crashing mine, hard, desperate, and I kissed back, fierce, nails digging into his arms, bodies pressed, a line crossed we couldn't uncross even if we tried now. We broke, panting, and I rasped, "This stays here, locked tight, or it's over. No second chances. You hear me clear, Luke?" Locked tight, he swore, forehead to mine, breath ragged, sealing it as the garage hummed, a secret burning hotter than the Texas sun outside. Monday started innocently enough, but then a client's bratty kid, some disrespectful young punk, came in and promptly spilled his soda all over the recently cleaned floor. I saw red as Luke immediately snapped, his voice sharp and protective. "Watch it. Diane works way too damn hard around here for you to just mess things up like that. Now clean it up and show some respect." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by his outburst, but also a little touched. I ended up mopping the sticky mess later, just shaking my head. "You're awfully protective, kid," I commented, trying to keep my tone light. "Didn't really need the hero act, but it's sweet you've got my back. I appreciate that." He just shrugged, a slight flush creeping up his neck. "Can't help it, Diane. I just don't like seeing anyone disrespect you, not after absolutely everything you've done for me here." As he spoke, his hand accidentally brushed against mine on the mop handle, sending a sudden jolt straight through me, a feeling that resonated far deeper than I was willing to admit to myself. Tuesday was a pressure cooker. We hit a major snag. Crucial parts were delayed, and naturally, the customers were already griping and breathing down our necks. The tension in the shop was thick enough to cut with a knife. I watched as Luke, usually so even-tempered, slammed a wrench down onto his workbench with a frustrated bang. "This is absolutely ridiculous," he exclaimed, his voice laced with irritation. "Why do we have to put up with this garbage every single day?" I immediately grabbed his arm, my grip firm and grounding. "Calm down, Luke. We deal with it because it's the job. It's what we signed up for, and you don't get to lose it on me right now, understand?" He froze, his eyes flashing with a mixture of anger and something else I couldn't quite decipher. Then, slowly, he nodded, his shoulders slumping slightly. "Sorry, Diane. I'm just frustrated with this whole situation. I didn't mean to take it out on you, honest." "I'm truly sorry." His grip on the wrench loosened, and his fingers lingered for a moment on my wrist, leaving behind a lingering heat that didn't fade as quickly as it should have. Wednesday night stretched on forever. We were stuck late trying to finish a tune-up on an old Toyota, the kind of job that just seemed to fight you every step of the way. He was working close, maybe a little too close for comfort. I could feel his breath warm on my neck as he leaned over me to check the belts, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. "You're in my personal space, Luke. Back up a bit, or at least say something. Don't just hover like that," I said, my voice tighter than I intended as I quickly turned around. His face was now just inches from mine, his eyes suddenly dark and unreadable. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, what he wanted. "Can't help it, Diane," he murmured, his voice low and husky. "I keep wanting to be near you, all the time, every second of the day. I just can't seem to help myself." His hand then grazed my hip, a daring move that I knew I should have immediately slapped away, but for some reason, I just didn't. Thursday brought a fresh wave of unwanted attention. A delivery guy, some slick-haired type, leaned on the counter, flashing a cheesy grin my way. "You're way too pretty to be stuck under cars all day, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Before I could even formulate a response, Luke bristled, stepping in front of me, his posture stiff. "She's busy," he said, his tone clipped and dismissive. "Move along, we've got work to do here. We don't have time for your nonsense." I couldn't help but smirk later, finding his protectiveness amusing. "Jealous much, Luke? Didn't need you playing guard dog, but it's cute you think you've got some kind of claim on me." I teased him lightly, trying to keep things casual. He flushed again, a deep red creeping up his cheeks. "Wasn't jealous," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "I just don't like guys acting like they own you, especially not when you're worth more than that. You deserve better than that kind of treatment." As he spoke, his hand brushed against my back, a spark of electricity that lingered far too long once again. Friday brought a storm. We fought a real, knockdown, drag-out fight, all over a botched oil change that he rushed and clearly didn't do correctly. I was furious, and I didn't hold back. "Pay attention, Luke. This kind of sloppy garbage costs me customers, and it costs me money. Get it together or get out. This isn't some game." He immediately fired back, his own anger flaring. "I'm trying, Diane. But don't treat me like I'm some idiot who doesn't know what he's doing. I'm not her. I'm here for you, Diane." We stood there, chest to chest, breathing hard, inches apart, the air crackling with unspoken tension. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me closer, his eyes blazing with intensity. "I'm not leaving," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "Not over this. Not over anything." I yanked my wrist free from his grasp, my own anger still simmering. "Then prove it," I snapped. "Stop screwing up and start thinking before you act, because this isn't a game anymore. This is my livelihood." He nodded, his jaw tight with determination. "I will. For you, I'll do better, I swear. Just don't push me away, please," he pleaded, his hand hovering in the air, a silent plea that I didn't answer verbally, but felt deep down in my bones. Saturday night arrived, bringing a strange sense of quiet. The shop was closed, the tools put away, and we found ourselves sprawled out on the old, worn-out couch in the break room, beers open, his leg pressed against mine, the silence heavy with everything unsaid that now hung between us. It was almost suffocating. "I keep seeing you, Diane. Tuesday, every night since. It's inside me." "I can't shake it," he confessed, his voice low and raw with emotion. His hand slowly slid to my thigh, his touch firm and deliberate, igniting a fire within me that I knew I couldn't put out anymore, a fire that had been smoldering for far too long. "Luke, we're past the edge here. It's too late to stop now, but it's also too early to even know what this even is," I said, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. His fingers tightened on my thigh, pulling me closer, his eyes locked intensely on mine, searching, questioning. He kissed me then, slowly at first, testing the waters, then fiercely, with a desperate hunger that mirrored my own. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me even closer, while mine instinctively tangled in his hair, holding him tight. Our bodies crashed together, a collision of pent-up emotions and unspoken desires, and the heat swallowed us whole like a raging Texas blaze. We broke apart, both of us trembling and breathless. I whispered, the words feeling heavy and significant. "This is ours. Hidden, locked away. Or it's nothing at all. Swear it again right now, Luke."
"Ours. Hidden, locked."
"I swear, Diane always," he breathed, sealing the pact, the garage now feeling like a cocoon, a sanctuary around our burning, dangerous secret.